This Kirby game leak for Nintendo Switch might make it interesting next year, or could it be released in 2020?
Block content.
What's happening, my Block buddies, and welcome to a brand new episode of Blocked Content's Leak Speak. My name is Callum, and this is going to be your content for today. And for a very long time, a lot of people have been thinking about the next Nintendo Switch title that will basically carry 2020 forward, right? We already have Animal Crossing right now that released, we have Luigi's Mansion of last year, and a couple of other great games. Of course, there's stuff coming like Xenoblade Chronicles, like the new remaster edition, but there's also a big gap in the rest of the year, and if we are to believe that recent Nintendo Direct Mini, there isn't all that much other crazy stuff coming. Other than that, we know there's Breath of the Wild 2, and there's this crazy leak about a Kirby game potentially coming to Nintendo Switch, which, if it comes out this year, will be a huge seller for the console and might actually make this year in terms of prime first-party Nintendo content. So I'll answer a lot of you guys' questions about that today, and of course I've been answering many of you guys' questions about Smash Ultimate and new fighters in our show Question Blocked, where I answer your question. What do I think of your favorite game? How do you start making YouTube videos? Well, whatever you can think of, send your question through to blockedcontentmail@gmail.com, and I will answer your question live on the show in our next Question Blocked episode. And here's a brand new giveaway. You can win this Super Mario surprise capsule from Tomy. Any Mario item, character, Yoshi could be inside. I'll leave them closed so you can find out when you win. I'm giving away 4 of these, so remember to like this video, subscribe to Blocked Content right now, and comment down below to enter for that giveaway. All right, guys, let's get into the main topic of today, and that's this Kirby rumor. Yes, Kirby isn't really at the forefront here normally, but it is of course a character that shows up in Smash Brothers. It's a huge loved Nintendo character, and of course Sakurai's very own creation, so I wanted to talk about this because it just says, you know, it has the Kirby Eat, like a really weird image here, which is basically just the Smash Brothers, I think it's for Wii U render, that's just a bit changed with the mouth photoshopped, and it says Kirby Eat, and here's the information that it says. There's a new Kirby game planned for 2021 Q2. Development is a joint collaboration with HAL and a new company who has been working on this project near the end of the development cycle for Star Allies, the previous Kirby game, right? Game is still traditional 2D platforming. The plot seems to indicate that Kirby is in some alternate reality with alternate characters to existing ones, similar to how Amazing Mirror did alternate versions of bosses and enemies. Of the alternate characters, DDD has an alternate version, which is a large rooster, and Meta Knights seem to be a samurai of some sort. There is some kind of floating eyeball fairy thing that can talk. I did not see a single returning enemy, including Waddle Dees. Main gimmick seems to be that none of the old abilities are present. Instead, the abilities are alternate versions of the old ones. From the one I've seen, Sword becomes Heavy, Beam becomes Sparkler, Spark becomes Storm, and the Doctor becomes a Shaman. Well, I'm not entirely sure if they are the correct alternate abilities of the old ones besides Shaman, which came from that description. I have no idea what Heavy is, nor seen what it looks like or is, but definitely related to Sword. Sparkler uses a firework wand, and Storm seems to use Lightning Cloud. Shaman can summon mummy things similar to the rat guy from Star Allies. What I assume are alternate abilities for Fire, Stone, Wing, Fighter, and Spear also exist. Assuming I remember and assume the icons correctly, Fire's was a stick on fire, possibly a magic staff, Stone was stacked rocks, Wing was a bird, and Fighter was a fist like how it is now, and Spear was a trident. That's all I know. So let's break down this thing in its entirety. At first, I want to kind of talk about the fact that this just exists and is out there. Now, normally with fake leaks and with speculation and stuff like that, it usually says something like, you know, I just wanted to leak this, or I'm very angry at Nintendo, or something like that. But this is just straight up information without any sources, without any, you know, trying to be cool or trying to give us information about some kind of source or the idea where someone got this from. Well, that doesn't really seem to be in the interest of this particular leaker. And if this is fake, it is a lot of information about something that isn't all super exciting, right? It sounds kind of like middle of the road new Kirby game for something like the 3DS, and of course we know it's going to be the Switch, but it does sound like really vanilla, and that to me is very interesting because we don't nearly hear as many of these kinds of rumors. So just talking about the fact that a new Kirby game could be coming and it has all these interesting new elements to it, that is already, to me, some sort of flag, right? Does this mean that this is just a creative person that comes with all these cool ideas, or is this actually a game now in development? And that 2021 Q2 thing does sound very interesting to me, right? If you're going to be thinking about a release date for a game, well, we need all the 2020 stuff right now that we can get, right? So it's very interesting to me that they chose for next year and even later than that. I mean, the Kirby team right now might only be working on like tiny DLC type stuff and maybe even the next game in the series, and if this much is finished for that game, I don't know why this won't be a holiday 2020 title, because as a whole, we are kind of missing the big guns for Nintendo Switch in this year at this point, right? If we're talking about games like Breath of the Wild 2, we don't even know if that's going to be this year yet, and everything else that we have to look forward to isn't all that huge first party exciting, right? I mean, we have Xenoblade Chronicles, which is sort of like first party, third party, and then other than that, we have some tiny games here and there, and possibly some Mario spin-off stuff, but that's basically it. Now, the idea that this talks about a joint collaboration with HAL and a new company, we don't even know who the new company is, but this person doesn't seem at all interested to talk about that. And of course, near the development cycle, the end of it for Star Allies, that also makes kind of sense to me in my ear. So it being a traditional 2D platforming, well, as you can see, we use a lot of pictures in this video of the beta version of a GameCube game for Kirby, and this was supposed to be sort of like the continuation of Kirby 64, but ultimately that game transformed into Kirby's Air Ride, which is one of my favorite games of all time, and the idea that it just became this 2D platforming franchise later again, you know, for like the Game Boy Advance, the 3DS, all that kind of stuff, and now continuing that trend is completely something that I buy, right? I mean, if I were to make like some crazy cool new Kirby game leak, I would definitely think of something like, well, it's 3D now and it looks like a chess game and you can do all this stuff. And well, definitely that's not what's happening here. This is like what I said, middle of the road, a very predictable something, but also, you know, in terms of story, the Kirby games are mostly light on that, right? And here too, the plot seems to just be Kirby is in an alternate reality of some sort. Of course, probably the bad guy of that particular game would have probably sent Kirby to some sort of dimension to try and get rid of Kirby. However, in this situation, Kirby actually comes across his friends and maybe even the enemies and bosses that have now turned into new alternate versions of themselves. Kind of think about the Doctor Strange multiverse situation here, right? Or the thing that DC does very well with like their different Earths. So the idea here is that all these different characters will look and act differently in these different realities. So maybe King Dedede as this large rooster might now be your best friend, right? Of course, Dedede and Kirby team up in a couple of games, but maybe here it's like a lot more friendly and maybe actually like a sidekick. And maybe other characters that we normally see as Kirby's friends will now straight up be enemies. And of course, Meta Knight's always kind of in the middle, and seeing Meta Knight as some sort of samurai kind of does make sense. So does this mean he's not a Kirby type anymore, but kind of like more of a humanoid? All of that is extremely interesting to me. And also the thing that doesn't really get talked about here, I mean, it talks a lot about all those special powers that Kirby has, and that sword is heavy, and the beam is now sparkler, and sparks are now storm, and the doctor is a shaman ability. So all of this stuff kind of echoes the previous games, but one thing that isn't really being talked about in this thing at all is that it's basically, yeah, middle of the road kind of stuff, and it's not really specific to Nintendo Switch as a whole, which is a very interesting prospect to me, because I always thought with these great Nintendo Switch first-party titles, you'd really want to do something original and unique around that concept, right? Use the Joy-Cons for something specific, but they don't really seem to be all that interested to do that in this particular leak. So yeah, there's a lot going on with this Kirby leak, and also I think generally for this year of Nintendo, it's going to be quite something, right? So I really wanted to know if you guys believe in this leak, if there are any like interesting prospects within this information. Is this just made up by some guy, or do you actually believe some of this information? Well, I'd love to hear what you guys think of this. If you comment down below, that could actually be featured and read out loud in our next video. And today's comment question is, well, what do you think of this Kirby game? What could it be, right? And as for a previous comment question winner, our answer comes to us from Waluigi. there will be 8 fighters instead of 8 colors. So here it is what is happening. The fighter from ARMS has always planned for a June release, just not this fighter. The first fighter of the past is done, but their introduction film can't be made because of the current situation. The ARMS fighter was planned for the 3rd fighter slot of the 6 fighters. Because the first fighter's intro video can't be made, that fighter is being moved to the 2nd slot. The fighter that was in the 2nd slot has now been moved to slot 3, where ARMS was set. The ARMS fighter is not 1 ARMS fighter, but 8, instead of 1 or 2 fighters with different colors. The color slots will each be one of the 8 different ARMS fighters. The fighter in June was supposed to release the same day as E3, but that has now changed due to a cancellation because of live events. There are 2 fighters for 2020 and 4 for 2021. So Waluigi, haha, thank you so much for your comment. And it's interesting to think about this because there is, of course, been a lot of switching around with all those different Nintendo IP, especially I think within Smash Brothers. I mean, even when Byleth dropped, I knew something was kind of off there. Like the whole pass was like third-party characters, and then you finish off with like the one franchise that people kind of have enough already in Smash Brothers, and then this new pass opens with a first-party character. So it could be one of 2 things, right? Number 1 is they are going to just be doing first-party for this pass, and that's actually what I think is very likely. Or it's going to be a different situation where things have been switched around and the ARMS fighter was something that they're now comfortable kind of talking about because the other stuff will take a little bit longer to create. So whatever way it goes, it's an interesting new situation for Smash Brothers, and I can't help but be excited about the other 5 characters in this pass, and of course, who will that ARMS rep be? Will it be maybe a new fighter for a new game in the series? That'd be really cool too. So thank you so much for sending in your comments. These are always a ton of fun to do. And of course, a big shout out to our latest Patreon supporters and the super chats during our live streams. You guys make block content possible. So if you want to have yourself created in pixel art, join us for discussions, or have your own ideas become videos on this channel, go to patreon.com/blockcontent. There's a bunch of cool stuff waiting for you. And remember, if you're not yet a member of the Blocked Content family yet, hit subscribe now, smash that like button, and ring the bell for notifications, and all the news and fun you care about will be delivered on the daily to you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you around the corner where there's always more blocked content. See ya!